basically launch our latest device, which is the Euphoria series in India. My name is Oliver Helm. I'm the marketing director for Asia Pacific, and it's really a pleasure because Euphoria is the world's smallest MR conditional ICD that has ever been launched. So ICD basically means we do have an implantable cardioverter defibrillator, saving patients with serious heart conditions basically from dying sudden cardiac death. And I will explain to you basic features of the device and why it is so important to basically have a device like this. So saying the world's smallest ICD and CRTD series, what we basically mean with that is that we have a series comprised of several models. We do have models for just single chamber use, for dual chamber use, so really treating both chambers in the heart, treating 3 chambers in the heart, and a very unique device which is called the Euphoria DX with advanced diagnostics, and that is a unique device which no one else has in that respect. We do have the capability of having a device with just one lead, sensing and delivering therapy in 2 different chambers, and that is a thing that is really very innovative. When we talk about Euphoria, we talk about 3 things in general. We talk about MRI Access. That is the very big thing that we all need to hear about. We talk about the improvement in size, because here we're offering convenience and we're offering safety for the patient. And then, of course, protection. That is the therapeutic side of the device, where we have done our homework in terms of sensing, in terms of therapy, in terms of monitoring. So let's quickly go through the MRI part. Why is it so important to have a device which is MR conditional nowadays? What we see here basically is the age distribution of patients which are in the typical age of an ICD patient. And we see that the typical ICD patient is about 55 years plus. What we see on that side is that patients receiving MRI examinations per year, the highest peak is basically directly in the patient population that we're trying to treat with our ICDs. So far, an MRI was a contraindication for all those patients. So the physicians had to say no to the patients. Now, with having such a device, it is possible that those patients can safely undergo an MRI scan, which offers them a huge diagnostic advantage in terms of scanning different soft parts of the body, because MRI simply has become the golden standard. We do have certain conditions, that's why it's called MR conditional, and here we're basically talking about what types of scanners are allowed to be used, how long can we actually scan the patient, and what is the so-called permissible isocenter positioning zone, which we refer to as the exclusion zone. The exclusion zone, I'll just jump through that in a second, is basically a zone at the in the body where we're not allowed to scan the patients, because there might be too much interference with the actual MRI scanner and the cardiac device that is being implanted, and the results might be that either we get a lot of artifacts in the picture, a lot of speckles, white spots, and that, of course, being a radiologist, you do not want to see that. You want to have a very clear diagnosis and not any dots, any speckles where you cannot really say what it is. So that's number 1. Number 2, which constitutes a much bigger problem for all cardiac implant devices, is the heat development in the wire, in the electrode. We have to imagine that basically an MRI acts like a microwave. So the leads will heat and they will discharge the heat in the heart. We cannot allow for that. That's why we do have certain conditions, and we don't allow with the ICDs to scan basically the chest zone. So a cardiac MRI is not possible, but that zone basically shrinks with the patient size. Still, if we take into consideration that we're not allowed to scan the chest, we look at all the other MRI indications on a global level. Head and neck constitutes a big chunk, a big portion of all scans worldwide. The lumbar spine, the extremities, altogether, if we take this into consideration, it is possible to scan around about 89% of all MRI indications. So in easier terms, that means that as a physician, they now have the chance to say to 9 out of 10 patients, yes, you can have an MRI, whereas before we've launched the Euphoria series, they unfortunately had to say to 10 out of 10 patients, sorry, no, you cannot undergo an MRI. Just a couple of examples from patients who have received MRI scans with cardiac devices. So all the important information is there. So I mentioned already, there's not only about MRI, but that of course is the most important part, because that is the unique thing. We're the only company who have such a device in place. But we also need to make sure that the devices are small. Why do they have to be small? Because opening a pocket and increasing the pocket for putting the device in, especially if you have to put a new device, always comes with an increased risk for infections and complications. So we have to make sure that devices are small for convenience and for safety. So we have done also our homework here. We have launched a new Biotronik DF4 connector, which is basically a new design that is a standard nowadays. It's a single port plug, which makes it very easy to attach the wires to the device, and which of course, due to the size, reduces the bulkiness of the device. Electrical circuitry and device battery, together with the shock capacitors, have undergone a complete redesign because the device is more compact, it is thinner, the footprint is smaller. That means that we had to come up with a new folding of the electric circuitries. We had to reduce the number of electrical connections, of weldings, and so on and so forth, and also design the battery in a different way so that we can fit it easily in that small device. Talking about device size, we have come up with a 15% reduction in thickness, a 6cc reduction in size, and a 12 gram reduction in weight, and that is a huge step. If we look at this picture, the red frame that we see is the devices that we had in place before the iForia series, and with only 11 millimeters in thickness, we are definitely state-of-the-art nowadays, have one of the smallest ICDs in the market, and with the Pro MRI feature, the smallest device that can undergo MRI scans. Of course, reducing size usually comes with a trade-off, and that trade-off usually is device longevity, so battery life. If we make batteries smaller, usually they don't last that long. That is a compromise that we did not want to accept. So here what we have done is we're using high precious quality materials and ultra-low power technologies so that we can ensure that even though the device and the batteries have become smaller, we have at least the same longevity that we put in place before. So no compromises on the lifetime of our devices. Talking about the lifetime, what are those? If we look at our single chamber devices, so where the device really is just taking care of one heart chamber, we talk about 11.5 years up to 7.5 years in a triple chamber device, where of course a lot more electricity is needed, and therefore the longevity increases slightly. But one thing that we're actually quite proud of and that we have to definitely consider is that all those longevities are with all features switched to on. So everything that could drain power from the energy is enabled. That is not always the case when we look at device longevity projections in the market. The last but certainly not the least important topic in this presentation is the reduction of so-called inappropriate shocks. What has gone through the press for quite some years now because of several recalls of companies in the medical device industry, especially in the cardiac rhythm management industry, where leads have undergone failures and recalls, and patients received shocks which were completely unnecessary. So there was no reason why those patients received shocks. And those shocks, those unnecessary shocks, cause pain and discomfort, they cause depression, they cause anxiety, they reduce quality of life, and most important, unfortunately, they increase the mortality risk. So we have to make sure that our technologies, our algorithms, really make sure that we only deliver a shock when it's necessary. So less fear, better patient acceptance, which constitutes the problem, because if patients get to know about all this, they refrain from that very important therapy, and that's of course not what we need. Also, the economic aspect has to be taken into consideration, because unnecessary shocks increase the risk for hospitalization, and that is completely unnecessary hospitalization. Of course, in that case it becomes important, but it causes an additional burden on healthcare systems and on medical systems. So our solutions basically are comprised of a circle of different things which we call sensing, therapy, and monitoring. So we do have different algorithms in place that basically make sure that what the device sees in the heart, because our therapy is always based on what we see. Action is based on the actual potentials that we see. So we do have several algorithms in place to make sure that what we see is correct and appropriate. Then when it comes to, for the therapy, for the sensing, the same thing. So basically the potentials that we measure and the activity, that's teamwork. that is really developed to work with each other. And by that we can make sure that everything that we see is correct, and we do not deliver those shocks that are completely unnecessary and inappropriate. And the monitoring part becomes very important too, because here we make sure that actually the physician gets to know in time, which is basically right after the event, that what the device does, so the work that it's performing is correct. And usually they can only evaluate and assess that if they see the patient in the hospital. With our unique home monitoring technology, basically he can do that in a remote way. He gets information on the device, on the patient status, and on the therapy status, either to his email account or to his mobile phone in form of SMS or email or whatsoever. And by that, we of course have introduced a very, very unique and very convenient solution to not only have early detection of any events that are going on in the heart, but also to, again, reduce the economic burden on the health system by simply not having the waiting rooms packed with patients that are just waiting to get their devices controlled. It is basically a device that looks like a small mobile phone. Patients clip it to their belt, and their implant communicates. The implant communicates with the cardio messenger. We call this the cardio messenger. The cardio messenger then sends via SMS, so we're using the global cell network, sends information to a home monitoring service center, which is an internet-based system. We analyze the data there, we store the data there, we refresh the data there, and we provide the data in a very unique way to the physicians, who are then able to see what is going on in that individual patient. Again, this does not require any patient intervention. They don't have to press buttons, they don't have to hook up telephone lines, they don't have to do anything. The only work for the physician basically is to check the so-called traffic light system in the device or in the home monitoring service center and see which patients require their attention because something is going on, or which patients do not require attention.
81 grams, and for one model it's 82 grams. We have discussed 81 grams, 82. I think, thanks Oliver for that quick input, and I would like to...
Till now, these patients were deprived of a particular technology, and that is an electronic device which is compatible for MRI when that is used for prevention of sudden deaths. There has been such a huge need for these patients to have this kind of a protection in case if they required a MRI. As it was mentioned earlier, majority of the patients who require these kind of pacemakers, which are special devices, majority of the patients who are candidates for these kind of a pacemakers did not undergo till now this particular device implantation, basically because more than half of these patients have certain other medical conditions where they would require MRI testing. See, now such an important device which is going to protect them from sudden death, protect them from so-called heart failure, like shortness of breath symptoms, swelling of ankle, giddiness, falling unconscious. These are the constellation of symptoms which alerts the physician to look for whether these patients can be protected by such a high-end pacemaker. Once you figure it out that such a pacemaker is required for a heart patient, doctor would also look at what are the other conditions the patient has. Because these are the elderly people, 50 plus are the majority of the patients who require this. When the doctor would know that he already has another medical condition, or he may have that medical condition, which is possible to figure it out, and then whenever the question comes about the MRI, suddenly that decision of recommending a pacemaker, the defibrillator, is withheld. Now I think this Euphoria series has brought in really a sense of euphoria among the electrophysiologists, the cardiologists, because it was like long awaited device has been launched, and thanks to Biotronik. these devices are so very sophisticated in all the aspects which had been enumerated by Oliver. To mention it again, they are the smallest, one of the smallest defibrillators and heart failure devices which are MRI compatible. So now you see, I have no hesitation in recommending this patient whether he requires it or no, because I'm not bothered about whether in future he will require MRI or no and things like that. Most importantly, it is very, very relevant from the Indian socio-economic point of view. Number one, these devices are expensive, okay, which are like, you know, the so-called single chamber ones, which cost about 5 lakh rupees. Then if you are talking about heart failure device, it will cost you anywhere between 8 to 10 lakhs. Okay. See, this is very expensive. I do not think anybody, you know, lower than the middle class group would ever be able to get it, especially when the insurance is not yet, you know, widely available in the country. So what happens is, when you propose a therapy which is very expensive, the next question is, when he is prepared, is, doctor, how long this device is going to last? How long is the battery life? You see, till now, it was again a major constraint for us to convince patients that, look, it lasts for 5 to 6 years. Okay, and then you might require a battery replacement. See, that would again bring down 50% of the patients because of their inability to fund that device. Now, here is the launch of a device where the longevity is supreme. You are talking about a device which is MRI compatible. You are talking about one of the smallest of the devices, which makes the implantation easy, and on top of that, this device would last like what, 7 to 11 years. That I think is a major technological advancement with respect to the pacemaker therapy in the world. Biotronik, I believe, had been always the leaders, and I think, you know, the implantation as such, from the doctor's point of view, is going to be extremely comfortable, and then that is also passed on to the patients, because now they have a gadget which is sleek, cosmetically very appealing, which is safe. There are no worries. MRI can be done, and then it lasts real long. So I think it is a celebration day, if you really ask me, because this is what the heart patients who wanted the pacemaker, who were waiting such long, the day has come, you know, and there's a list of the patients who needed MRI and then who did not undergo this are all in the queue from today. So I'm here with Oliver to interact with you if there are any more discussions required.
What is the incidence of people who need a pacemaker?
Right. You see, the requirement of the pacemaker increases as the patient ages. So if you put it, the age-wise bracket, beyond the age of 60 years, the requirement for the pacemaker, either for controlling only the pulse rate, or preventing the sudden death, or for improving the pumping function. These are the three functions of the pacemaker. So beyond the age of 60, I would put like 1 in 1,000 population who are the beyond the age of 60 would require pacemaker support. The incidence is so extremely high. It is just that, you know, they are expensive gadgets. You know, the patient would continue to, you know, suffer those symptoms, and it goes on. When you talk about 80 and above, okay, well, you know, the Indian population is less with respect to that age group. You know, you can increase it safely to up to 5 per 1,000 of 80 plus year old people requiring pacemaker support. One of the reasons why Biotronik really looked at, introducing this is there is so much of a problem with respect to the finances. So they brought the longevity issue here, and then they are marketing it. And then most importantly, the volume. The volume is so much. Okay, this product is going to be hugely popular, and I think this is also one of the important reasons why you chose India as a launching pad in this part of the world, to bring it in. So did I answer that? Beyond the 80, like 5 in 1,000, and beyond the age of 60, 1 in 1,000 would require one or the other form of a pacemaker for their support. Probably the 5th or the 6th country, where it is approved for marketing, selling, and then the implantation. Yes, the DCGI.
Good morning, my name is Oliver Helm. I'm a marketing director for Asia Pacific for Biotronik, and actually I'm very proud that we are able to introduce that new breakthrough device in India right now. So today is the official launch, and we will further, of course, promote those activities throughout Asia Pacific, throughout the world, and especially here at the IHRS this year.
Okay, you tell us about the feedback about your people who have used this device.
Yes. Well, basically, launching an ICD, an implantable cardioverter defibrillator with a pro MRI function, so giving patients the chance to access an MRI safely is, of course, a breakthrough in technology and is very important. So the feedback from the users so far is very good. From the actual ICD features themselves, so preventing unnecessary shocks that are really painful and increase mortality, up to a point where people really get the access to that state-of-the-art therapeutic and diagnostic technologies. So our users are very happy because we are the only company who can actually offer this feature, and that of course is a huge step in medical science today.
What's your plans? Which are the hospitals that you are tied up with to introduce this product here in India?
Well, basically all hospitals. There will be no hospitals that we're leaving out. Of course, India is a market which is quite difficult in terms of economy and the structure on how we are allowed to sell devices. But so far we have made good progress in India, and also our sales numbers are increasing quite a lot. So Biotronik is on the move in India.
Thank you so much.
Hello, I am Dr. Ullas Pandurangi. I am the Director of Cardiac Electrophysiology at Madras Medical Mission Hospital, Chennai. I am glad here to announce that in India, for the first ever time, one of the electronic devices which protects person from sudden cardiac death, protects from heart failure deaths, is being launched. And I think I am very proud because it is being launched from Chennai, and this is the device which has such sophisticated features that with this kind of a device the patients may not be hesitant to undergo one of the important diagnostic investigations that's called MRI. This particular device called Euphoria device is Euphoria series. I think it is patient friendly, very safe to the patient, and most importantly it makes the electrophysiologist's life very simple because of its smallness and the sleek design, etc. So I am very glad that it is being launched today in India.
It prevents or it saves, or what is it?
Yeah, right. It does both. It prevents from the sudden cardiac death episodes, and it also treats in case if the patient is at risk of developing sudden cardiac death.
How does it detect, and how does it
Yeah. You see, this is kind of an electronic device which is a size of a small matchbox, which is placed under the skin just below the collarbone on the left hand side, and that particular device is connected by wires into the heart, and these wires communicate what is happening with respect to the electrical activity with the device. So the device has got an intelligent chip inside. It's like a superb computer there. So it would understand, whether the heart is beating okay, is it beating very fast or very slow, and it also looks at whether it is beating weakly. So all these things are known by the device, and it will give the inputs through the electrical current, and then it makes the heart behave normal.
Oh, it pumps, it helps the heart to beat properly.
Right.
So it rectifies the problem.
Right. So it has
doesn't
multiple
show the
functions.
result alone. I mean, it helps in pumping or something.
Right. So it helps in controlling the heart rate, which we call pulse rate. It improves the pumping function as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this you recommend for the heart patients after
The heart patients who are really very sick, who are at risk of developing sudden cardiac death, who are at risk of developing heart failure, and requiring hospitalizations. Yeah.
So this is the first time that we are introducing here in India, or it has already been done?
No, it has it is only few countries where it has been launched. So I think Indians are like lucky now that this product has come very soon, and I think the Biotronik people have really done a good job in bringing this technology to India.
So what is the feedback of the people who have already used it?
Yes, any kind of such devices, when they are released, there's a large number of patients who undergo from the point of investigation series, and the results have been fantastic. They are safe, they are good. So because on the basis of the patient's results, and the number is large, then only the federal regulatory boards will give the recommendation that now it can be marketed, it can be used, it can be implanted. So this particular device has gone through the very rigorous protocols of looking at the safety and efficacy.
Right. So this device you will connect to the body only if they have undergone first heart surgery or something?
No. In fact, it can avoid heart surgeries.
Okay.
Yeah. Putting in this device,
At what point of time do you actually recommend this to the patient?
Right. You see, when we realize that the patient, we realize that this patient's heart is now getting weaker, when we realize that the patient's pulse rate is not okay, and when we realize that the patient is getting admitted again and again for shortness of breath, swelling of legs, when we realize this patient is now falling unconscious, without any kind of warning symptoms, then we investigate them. Then we will find out whether this problem is because of the pulse rate problem, which is high, regular, irregular, or we'll find out whether the so-called pumping function is gone down. On analyzing this therapy is recommended.
So how much does it cost? Is it
Right. So this i4 series devices, actually there are types of devices in this series. i4 series is in general sleek ones, MRI compatible devices. So it comes in two varieties of devices. One which is meant only to prevent sudden deaths. Okay, we know which patient is going to die suddenly, right? So in whom we recommend one type of device. It's called only sudden death prevention device. It's called ICD alone. That costs anywhere between 5 to 6 lakhs per device. Now there is i4 series, which will protect from sudden death as well as pumping function. It will improve. It's called CRTD. So it does both things. It prevents sudden death. It improves the pumping function. That costs anywhere between 8 to 10 lakhs. Okay, and most important thing is these devices are MRI compatible. So it's very, very safe. These are the people who may require MRI. Plus it comes with something called home monitoring system. So patient will have the device implanted here, goes home, still feels secured that the doctor is by his side. That is called home monitoring system.
Great, amazing.
Yeah, all right.
We've become more of us.
Yeah, all right.